The look that meant death. The emergency lights bathed the cramped escape pod in flickering red. Panels sparked. Oxygen hissed softly through a breach, hastily sealed by a patch of gel foam. Outside the viewport, the stars were silent witnesses to the disaster that had left them stranded in the dead quiet of Sector GR25, light years from any known station or relay point. Commander Jake Mercer leaned back in his seat, exhaling as he bit the last chunk of a nutrient ration bar. He chewed, slowly, thoughtfully, trying to hide his frustration. Across from him, strapped into the opposite safety seat, sat Liari of the Tresari Dominions, full-skinned, eyes like pools of polished onyx, and still as a statue. She hadn't moved in nearly 15 minutes, not since the incident. He didn't know what he'd done wrong. One moment they were working together to reroute power through the auxiliary core. The next, she had gone completely silent, muscles locked, expression unreadable. Then came the shivering, subtle, but noticeable. Her hand drifted to the side of her suit, where he suspected a hidden blade or neural disruptor might be tucked away. Jake licked his dry lips absent-mindedly. The ration bar always left his mouth parched. That was when she flinched. Her pupils dilated. Her shoulders stiffened. The tremor in her limbs vanished, as if a survival protocol had overridden her. Panic, he noticed it too late. "I didn't mean to startle you," Jake said softly, trying to sound disarming. "Are you okay?" She didn't respond. Instead, her breath quickened, and her gaze flicked to his mouth. Jake raised an eyebrow. "Liari." Her voice was cold, clipped. "Is that what comes before?" "Before what?" She blinked. "Before you consume." Jake leaned forward, confused. "What are you talking about?" Her hand moved slightly toward her waist. Her long fingers curled around something beneath her suit. A weapon. Jake was sure of it now. "I saw the gesture," she said. "You licked your lips. You showed your teeth." Jake gave a baffled chuckle. "Yeah, I was just thirsty. The food's dry as hell. To my people, that is the signal, the final one. When a mate has been selected for intimacy and death." Jake blinked. "Wait, what? Intimacy and death?" She nodded once, slowly, as if preparing for her last stand. "The old scrolls speak of humans who devour their mates in rituals. Passion, then pain, then consumption." "That's a myth," Jake said, stunned. "A very wrong one." "Is it?" Her eyes narrowed. "We have ancient footage muggled, transmissions, intercepted years ago." A man leaned close to a woman. She smiled. He bared his teeth and bit into her. Jake's face turned red. Was she laughing? Smiling? "That's called a kiss." She frowned. "A kiss?" "Yeah, it's affection. We don't eat people we like." He hesitated. "At least, not. I mean not in the way you're thinking." Liari slowly stood up, her eyes locked on him like a hunted animal trying to guess the predator's next move. Her voice was tight with fear. "You mean there is a way?" "Not like that," Jake groaned, running a hand down his face. "Okay, this is getting really weird. It's already deadly," she hissed. Jake held up his hands, palms open. "Listen, I don't know what stories you've been told, but we don't eat people. Not for love, not for anything. That's insane." She tilted her head. "Then why the teeth?" Jake smiled awkwardly. "They're just part of the face. You show them when you smile. It's supposed to be friendly." "In Tresari culture," Liari said, "baring teeth is only done in the presence of prey or enemies." Silence. Then, a low ping echoed through the pod. The navigation system flickered. A foreign signal appeared encrypted and written in Tresari GLYPHS. Jake frowned. "What is that?" Liari stepped forward and pressed the decryption panel. The console buzzed, and a single line of text blinked into existence on the screen. "Do not trust the human. He knows." She turned her eyes back to him, this time filled not just with fear but suspicion. Jake stood slowly. "I didn't send that. You know I didn't. I know nothing of your capabilities." Jake gestured to the screen. "If I was trying to harm you, why would I need to warn you? That doesn't even make sense. Unless," she said softly, "you're playing a deeper game." Her hand slid the hidden weapon free with a soft click. It gleamed under the flickering red light, thin, almost crystalline, and shaped like a needle-dash blade. Jake didn't move. "Liari, you don't want to do this." She stepped forward. "I won't die in terror. If this is the end, it will be on my terms." Jake met her eyes, suddenly calm. "Then let me ask you something," he said. "If I wanted to eat you, why would I have waited this long?" She paused. The question landed like a stone in still water. Before she could answer, the pod shuddered. Something had docked with them. Mistranslations and misconceptions. The escape pod trembled again, a subtle vibration beneath their feet like the breath of something ancient and alive just outside. Jake's eyes darted toward the sealed airlock. The pod had detected a connection, but no registry, no beacon, no identity. Just a cold, mechanical handshake from something foreign. Liari didn't lower her weapon. Jake didn't flinch. They stood frozen, both caught in the storm of mistrust, one born from centuries of alien myths, the other from a human's confusion that kept growing darker by the second. Then the light dimmed further. The pod's emergency power grid flickered and dropped to critical reserves. Jake took a cautious breath. I'm telling you, I don't know what that signal was, but we need to figure it out together. You lower your blade, I'll lower my voice. Liari's gaze remained sharp, but her fingers relaxed just slightly around the hilt. Together is how prey often dies. Trust is the first ingredient in a predator's deception. Do I look like I've got some master plan here? Jake said, motioning around. We're floating in a damaged tin can with 15 hours of oxygen left. If I wanted to hurt you, why would I wait until now? Because you were waiting, until I trusted you. He sighed, dropping onto the edge of the pod's bench. I don't know what ancient war your people think we started, but I promise you humans don't make a habit of devouring diplomats. Her weapon remained out, but she sat down to prose from him, tense, watching. Jake decided to try again. Tell me something, Liari. Who exactly taught your people that humans eat their mates? Her face twitched, as if a painful memory had flared behind her eyes. We don't speak of the first contact. He leaned forward. Then maybe it's time you did. She hesitated. There were ships, human ones. Before my birth cycles, they came to our edgeworlds, under banners of peace, smiles, laughter, teeth. My ancestors say the humans were kind, until they weren't. Jake blinked. What happened? Liari's voice was quiet. 2 of our envoys disappeared. The transmissions recovered showed images. One smiling human leaning close. The footage cut out as he placed his mouth on the envoy's face. Jake's jaw clenched. Are you sure that wasn't? We thought it was affection too, she said bitterly, until the second envoy was found. Bones cleaned. Gnawed. A cold silence filled the pod. Jake exhaled slowly. You're saying human Zatyr diplomats? That's what the scrolls claim. And now, I'm alone in a vessel with one who bares his teeth at me and receives anonymous warnings. Jake stood abruptly and walked to the navigation console. Let me show you something. He tapped into the universal data storage. The pod carried basic media, language files, and culture briefings exchanged between Earth and allied species. He pulled up a file. Human mating behaviors, diplomatic, reference archive. A collection of images filled the screen. Humans, hugging, kissing, laughing, pressing their lips together, touching foreheads. Liari stiffened. Why are their mouths always involved? It's how we express affection, Jake explained. Kisses aren't violent. They're symbolic, emotional, romantic. I know it looks strange, but it's not predatory. Liari slowly approached the screen. Her eyes darted over the clips. I've never seen these before. Jake nodded. Because your leadership never showed them to you. They wanted to keep the fear alive. Maybe they needed a threat to unify against her. Eyes locked onto one still image. A couple embracing on a beach, lips touching, laughing under the setting sun. That doesn't look like death, she said quietly. Jake smiled gently. Exactly. Then, the pod's alert system flared again. This time, it wasn't a signal, it was a life form scan. One, outside. Not human. Not Tresari. Liari backed away from the screen and gripped her blade tighter. Who's out there? Jake scanned the readout. No known species signature. Heat-based biology, and it's latched onto our hull. She hissed through clenched teeth. Not possible. This system is dead. There's nothing here. Apparently there is, Jake said grimly. The pod shuddered again as a thudding clang echoed through the hull. Jake turned to her. I think we need to work together now. Liari didn't argue. She sheathed the blade, but didn't take her eyes off the airlock. Then the comm system crackled to life, blaring in a warped, glitched mimicry of Liari's own voice. Do not trust the human. He knows what they did. Both turned to the console in shock. The voice repeated, lower now, and more distorted, like a recording passed through centuries of corrupted data. Jake stepped back. That's not from Earth. We don't have tech that mimics alien voices like that. Liari said nothing at first. Then, it's Tresari mimicry, forbidden technology, long outlawed. So why is it here? Jake asked. She looked at him, for the first time, without just uncertainty. I don't know. But someone is trying to make sure you and I never trust each other. Jake nodded slowly. Then maybe it's time we prove them wrong. Another loud impact. This time, the airlock decompressed slightly. Whatever was outside was trying to get in. The message from the void. The airlock creaked under pressure, groaning like the metal itself was afraid. The two of them stood still. Jake Mercer with his hand near the emergency plasma cutter. Liari with her blade drawn again, every muscle tense. Outside the pod, the unknown life form pressed harder. Its heat signature flared unnaturally, pulsing like a second heartbeat grafted onto the hull. Whatever it wasn't trying to breach the pod to escape the void. It was trying to reach them. Jake stepped back from the console. If it were trying to kill us, it would have done it by now. Liari said nothing. Her eyes hadn't left the door. Suddenly the internal lights dimmed, and then everything stopped. No vibrations, no hum of the emergency life support, no static, just silence. Then the screens flickered, once, twice, and came alive with ancient Trizari glyphs, scrolling across in erratic patterns. Jake glanced at Liari. That's your language, right? Yes, she whispered. But this dialect is old, pre-Union, forbidden. More glyphs appeared, organizing into a line of readable text. A lie told for survival is still a lie. Truth has drifted too long. Wake the memories. A sudden clunk echoed from the rear of the pod. A hidden maintenance panel fell open, revealing a small, triangular data crystal, its edges glowing with a dull purple light. Jake stared. That wasn't there before. Liari walked over, cautious but curious, and picked it up. Her fingers trembled slightly as she turned it over. This is a Trisari memory shard, an old one. What's it doing on a human issue escape pod? No idea, she murmured. But if it's genuine, it might explain everything. Jake gestured to the auxiliary console. Can you plug it in? Liari gave a slow nod and slotted the crystal into the translator interface. The pod's systems groaned, lights dimming again, as if struggling to hold back the flood of forgotten truths now pouring into its processors. A hologram blinked into life. A Trisari female, pale, elegant, clearly high-ranking, stood facing the viewer. Her voice echoed out, soft and filled with the weight of regret. If you are hearing this, the truth has been buried long enough. Jake and Liari exchanged a glance. The first contact between the Trisari and humans did not end in war, as our history claims. It ended in 4 hours. We encountered them on the outer colonies, friendly, open, but different, too different. Their affection confused us. Their emotional intensity terrified the elders. And then, one of our envoys fell in love with one of theirs. Liari stepped back, breath caught in her throat. They were bonded, in secret, happy. But when the elders found out, they claimed the envoy had been devoured. They fabricated the scene. Bones, scars, a story that would live for generations. So no Trisari would ever again trust a human. But the truth is simpler. We feared them not because they were monsters, but because they weren't. And we couldn't control what we didn't understand. The hologram faded. Silence. Jake swallowed. So, your people made up the story. Liari stared at the dark screen, visibly shaken. Not all of them. The ruling houses must have silenced anyone who knew. A single lie, passed down as sacred truth. Jake nodded grimly. And someone went to a lot of trouble to make sure you still believed it. She turned to him. That voice earlier, the mimicry warning us. It wasn't from my people. Not anymore. It's too old, too corrupted. But someone used it to reignite the fear. Jake crossed his arms. Which means, someone doesn't want us cooperating. Before she could respond, the pod's radar blipped. A new object had entered proximity, an old probe, drifting silently in space. Jake squinted at the data. No drive, no comms, no registry. It's been floating for years. Pull it in, Liari said. There may be more. He hesitated, then activated the retrieval beam. The small device clanked against the airlock and magnetized into position. Minutes later, Jake had it open on the floor. Inside, dust, decay, and one cracked drive core. He connected it to the pod's interface. The screen flashed, this time with raw footage, grainy, distorted, but clear enough to recognize. Human man and a Trisori female laughing together in what looked like an overgrown bio. They were close, intimate. The man reached forward, gently touching her face. She touched his lips. Then came the static, then a cut. The next shot, the female, sitting alone, crying. A transmission began, directed to Trisari High Command, her voice shaking. They told me to lie, to say he hurt me, but I won't. He didn't devour me. He saved me from my fear, from the hatred they raised me with. They will silence me for this, but let the record show I was loved by a human, and I loved him back. The footage ended. Neither of them spoke for a long time. Then Jake said, "That's it. That's where the myth came from. One lie, one cover-up." Liari was shaking now, with fear but rage, and we built our policies, our alliances, our entire history, on that lie. Suddenly, the console buzzed. Another signal, this time encrypted using modern Trisari diplomatic protocols. Jake frowned. Someone just found us. Liari scanned the code. Her eyes narrowed. "That's not a rescue ship. Then who is it?" She looked at him gravely. "I think it's the people who buried the truth, coming to make sure it stays buried." Between trust and teeth, the pod trembled again, this time, not from contact, but from a wave of directed electromagnetic pressure. It hit like a silent explosion, killing every backup system for a full second before flickering back online. The console screamed a warning. Proximity breach. Vessel ID, unknown. Trisari encryption detected. Jake turned from the scanner, jaw clenched. "They're not broadcasting any identification. That's not standard for a diplomatic retrieval ship." Liari was already moving to the emergency cabinet. "Because it's not diplomatic, it's a cleanup crew." Jake raised a brow. "You're sure?" She retrieved a secondary neural disruptor from the cabinet, checking its charge level. "Positive. Only the inquisitorial branch uses this level of encryption. They deal with unclean truths." Jake scoffed. "You've got secret police." "All great civilizations do," she replied with a bitter smirk. "Though we call them preservers of harmony, they handle problems before the public even knows they exist." He looked toward the approaching ship on the scanner. It was massive compared to their pod's leak, dark and disturbingly silent. "So let me guess," Jake muttered. "Two people, one human, one Trisari. Uncover the truth behind a centuries-old cultural lie that has shaped interspecies diplomacy. And now they've sent a hit squad to erase the evidence." Liari said nothing. Jake turned to her. "You're not surprised?" "No," she said softly. "Because I always knew there was something off about the old teachings. I just didn't expect to be the one caught in the contradiction." The console blipped again. "Incoming message. Audio only." The voice was smooth, emotionless, but unmistakably Trisari. "Envoy Liari, you are instructed to remain in place. Do not respond to the human. Disable him if necessary. Your extraction will proceed upon confirmation of termination." Jake blinked. "Wait, what?" The voice continued. "Your proximity to an unpredictable predator has compromised your judgment. Human manipulation is known. You will be debriefed and cleansed. Do not resist." Then the line cut. Jake stared at her. "They just gave you permission to kill me." Liari's hand hovered near her weapon, but then she turned and deactivated it. Jake exhaled slowly. "Well, that's a good sign." She looked at him, eyes haunted but determined. "I won't follow blind orders anymore." He nodded. "Then we better move, fast." Jake slid over to the storage compartment, near the base of the pod. It wasn't much, basic suit modifications, a tether, a signal flare, but maybe it could be enough. "We have a 10-minute window before they try forced docking," he said. "We can't outrun them, but we can make it look like we're not worth the trouble." Liari raised an eyebrow. "You want to fake our deaths? Better than the alternative." They worked quickly. Liari vented a short burst of oxygen into the cum tube to scramble their internal life readings. Jake rewired the pod's emergency beacon to send out a false overload signaler, staged explosion that would make them look vaporized in a reactor burst. Then Liari handed him a portable pressure suit. "If this fails, you'll die in the void." Jake grinned. "I've had worse first dates." She didn't smile, but for the first time, she didn't look away from him. As Jake adjusted the suit, she asked softly, "When you licked your lips earlier, you really were just thirsty?" Jake blinked, surprised by the question. "Yeah, that ration bar tastes like dried concrete." Liari gave the faintest nod. "In my culture, licking your lips before approaching someone is a sign of intent. Predatory, all romantic, sometimes both. Jake tilted his head. So, I accidentally confessed my love and threatened to eat you. Essentially, he chuckled. Cross-cultural romance is going to need better translators. Her voice dropped low. What if? The translator was never broken, but our understanding was. Before Jake could respond, the entire pod rocked violently. The enemy vessel had initiated forced magnetic locking. They were out of time. Jake pulled Liari down with him, sliding them into the narrow crawl space beneath the floor panels, where power coils and insulation lines ran along the hull. He whispered, "Get ready. The fake reactor overload hits in 20 seconds. Then we go out the maintenance shaft right through the blind spot in their sensors." She nodded. Seconds crawled by like minutes. Then boom. A deafening surge of light and vibration tore through the pod. The fake overload detonated perfectly, launching debris and a wash of plasma in every direction. Inside the crawl space, insulated and shielded, Jake and Liari held their breath. The enemy ship veered back, scanners flickering as the chaos overloaded their sensors. Jake grabbed the manual release lever on the underside of the pod. "Let's go." He shoved it down. The panel popped open with a hiss of compressed air. Void and silence screamed outside, clinging to the tether. Jake launched himself out, Liari right behind him. They floated in space, invisible to the enemy ship's fractured sensor grid, drifting slowly into the shadows of a nearby asteroid. Jake looked back, watching the fake wreckage scatter like a funeral pyre across the stars. "They'll think we're dead," he said. Liari's voice came through the suit comms. "Good. Now we can find the ones who started this lie, and make sure they can never silence the truth again." Jake turned toward her. Even in the helmet, he could see her resolve had changed. This wasn't just survival anymore. This was a mission. And for the first time, they weren't human and Trisari. They were allies. The one who watches. The asteroid's shadow swallowed them whole. Jake and Liari drifted quietly in the cold void, tethered to a jagged outcropping. On the barren rock's surface, their suits were patched, air limited, and systems unstable. But they were alive and, for now, invisible. Below them, the black Trisari Inquisitorial ship circled the debris field their escape pod had faked. Scanners swept across the wreckage. Heat signatures flickered in confusion. And after several long, breathless minutes, the enemy ship finally powered down its weapon arrays. A silent decision had been made. The two fugitives were presumed vaporized. Liari spoke first, her voice low and the helmet calm. "They'll leave soon, once they confirm the signature decay." Jake nodded. "Then we drift toward that derelict probe field we spotted. With luck, there's something we can piggyback a signal from." They pushed off the asteroid with careful control, using the last of their thrusters to glide toward a distant halo of floating wreckage, forgotten satellites, abandoned beacons, and unclaimed research probes suspended in a silent graveyard of failed missions. As they approached the graveyard, Jake spotted something unusual. A ship, not human, not Trisari, not anything he recognized. It wasn't just drifting, it was watching Liari, he said, quietly. "Look at grid point 58, that structure." She turned. Her breath caught audibly in the comm. "That's not from any galactic registry I know." The vessel was massive, at least 10 times larger than a Trisari battleship, but completely silent. Its surface shimmered like liquid metal, shifting and morphing even in stasis. Strange symbols moved across its hull, pulsing with light that didn't quite follow any known spectrum. Then, without warning, their suits buzzed with a transmission, untranslated, unfiltered, but not incomprehensible. It spoke directly to their minds. "You were not meant to see this truth, but now you have. And so the Watchers must decide." Jake clutched his helmet. "What the hell is that?" Liari shook her head, eyes wide inside her visor. "Telepathic broadcast, ancient, beyond any range I've ever encountered." The voice spoke again. "4 cycles beyond memory, we shaped your stories, not with force but with fear. Your myths, your warnings, your cautionary tales. We planted them." Jake blinked. "You're the ones who started the humans eat their mates myth. We offered the seed. The Trisari nurtured it well." Liari stiffened. "Why? Why would you create lies between our species?" "Because unity is dangerous. Empathy among difference breeds unpredictability. War is manageable. Fear is predictable. Peace is chaos." Jake stared at the ship, anger building in his chest. "So all the mistrust, all the stories, every conflict. We might have avoided you, did this. You played God. We are not gods. We are curators. Liari's voice trembled with fury. Curators of what? Balance, evolution. You call it manipulation. We call it preservation. Jake's fists clenched. How many other species have you done this to? Enough to maintain the quiet. The voice faded, and for a moment, there was only the hum of their own fear. Then, without warning, the alien vessel began to move, unfurling limbs or extensions or projections that defied clear definition. Like tendrils of thought made metal, it opened itself, revealing a chamber. Inside, lit in shifting starlight, floated hundreds of memory shards. Sorry human, others too, all glowing, suspended in some kind of stasis field. Liari's breath caught. That's our history, our real history. We kept them safe, until now. Jake felt his heart pound. They're giving it back. No, we are giving you a choice. The field shimmered, forming a decision prompt in both their helmet displays. Accept the memory archives, break the cycle of lies, face the chaos of truth, or walk away. Forget what you've seen. Return to your systems, obedient and controlled. Jake looked at Liari. We could go back. Pretend we never saw any of this. Maybe even survive a little longer. She shook her head. No, we've already broken the lie. Going back would just be delaying the fallout. Jake stared at the glowing shards. This truth, it could cause war, panic, collapse. Liari nodded. Yes, but it could also bring healing. Jake exhaled slowly. Then I vote truth. She looked at him, eyes glinting behind her visor. So do I. Together they reached toward the interface and touched the acceptance field. Instantly, a torrent of light surged through their visors. Not pain, understanding. Images flooded their minds. The first human trees, sorry friendships, wiped from records. Alien ambassadors erased from history because they sought peace too quickly. Wars orchestrated subtly, always at the brink of diplomacy, never tipping into lasting unity. Then it ended. Jake fell to one knee inside the suit. Liari was breathing heavily, but both were alive, and now, they knew. The memories are yours. So is the burden. Do not expect help. We have watched. We will watch no longer. The alien vessel powered down. It shimmered once and then simply vanished. Not cloaked. Gone. Gone. Jake looked over at Liari. She whispered, we have to bring this home. All of it. Jake nodded. But we can't go to command. Not yet. They'll bury us before we get a word out. She stared into the stars. Then we go to the people. A blip on their scanners lit up an old COM relay within reach. Primitive, unsecured, and slow, but capable of broadcasting. Jake's eyes hardened with purpose. Then let's blow the truth wide open. They grabbed the archive unit from the wreckage. It hummed, softly heavy with the weight of stories, long suppressed. This wasn't just about survival anymore. This was rebellion. We are not what they say. The ancient relay station drifted silently in the void, a rusting monument to forgotten wars and obsolete diplomacy. Its surface was scarred by time and micrometeorite impacts, its beacon long inactive, but to Jake and Liari it was perfect, primitive, unsupervised, and beyond the reach of real-time censorship. They latched their suits to the outer hatch and cracked it open manually. The airlock wheezed, resisting after decades of disuse. Inside, stale atmosphere hissed through broken filters. The lights flickered, then dimly glowed, casting a pale, sickly hue across the cracked walls. Jake coughed. Well, smells like mold and cold regret. Liari gave him a sidelong glance. Is human humor always this self-deprecating? Jake smirked. Only when we're trying not to panic. They made their way to the command core, where a shattered console hung loosely from rusted bolts. Liari plugged the archive shard into an auxiliary slot and let the systems boot up around it. Lines of raw data scrolled across the screen. Millennia of truth suppressed, edited, erased. Jake watched the transmission array slowly power on, its old antennae extending into space like skeletal fingers reaching for a distant god. Are you sure this thing can still broadcast? Liari nodded. The signal will be slow, fragmented, but once it hits the fringe colonies, it'll spread, piece by piece. Jake exhaled. Then let's make it count. She nodded again, more solemnly this time. One story. That's all it takes to crack a wall of lies. Jake stared at the screen, then back at her. You tell it. Her eyes widened slightly. Me. You believed the lie. You lived it, but you chose the truth. That's more powerful than anything I could say. She swallowed, then stepped forward. The relay's transmitter pinged green dot recording .lyar. I looked into the flickering lens. Enchant tech. Slow refresh rate. Pixelated. But it was enough. She spoke, to the Trissary people, and to the humans listening. I am Envoy Liari, daughter of the Orion Conclave. I was raised to fear Earth. I was taught that humans lured their lovers with smiles, then devoured them in the dark. I believed this, completely. I was trained to resist their charm, their curiosity, their chaos. And then I met one. Commander Jake Mercer, Earth Navy, trapped with me after a shipwreck. He smiled. He licked his lips after eating a ration bar. I prepared to die, but he didn't attack me. He offered me water. Everything I believed began to break. And in that crack, I found the truth. Not just about him, but about everything. The stories we were told about human appetites, human dangers, human deceit, were not history. They were programming, installed by those who feared unity more than war. The lies were planted by forces that claimed to preserve balance through division, forces older than both our peoples. They fed us fear. They kept us apart, but no more. I chose not to kill him. He chose not to fear me. And together, we found the memories they buried. We recovered our real history. We now release that history to every system within range, every truth, every archive, every erased name, and every forgotten act of peace. Let them see us now not as predator and prey, not as enemies hiding behind mistranslations, but as what we truly are: sentient, flawed, capable of compassion, capable of growth. We are not what they say we never were. The message ended. Silence returned to the relay. Then the archive began broadcasting, slow at first, just a trickle of data shooting out across space. But it would catch. In a few hours, it would reach the outer colonies. Within days, it would hit the trade networks. Then the embassies. Then the galactic channels. Jake leaned against the wall, exhausted. Now we just wait. Liari sat beside him, and probably run. Jake smiled. You think they'll try to hunt us? No, I think they already are. He laughed quietly. We're dead, remember, vaporized in an overload. Only as long as no one recognizes our voices, she said. Jake winked. I'll grow a beard. She tilted her head. Do beards improve disguise? Only if you grow them with enough attitude. They sat in silence for a long while, watching the relay continue its lonely transmission. Eventually, Liari turned to him. You once said kissing wasn't predatory. Jake raised an eyebrow. That's true, still is. She leaned slightly closer. And humans show affection that way. Sometimes she considered this. Then I wished to try. Jake blinked. Why to mean right? Before he could finish, she leaned in and gently pressed her forehead to his. The gesture was not a kiss by human standards, but something intimate, something ancient. Her voice was barely a whisper. This is how my people show trust. The skin closest to our minds. Jake touched his forehead to hers. Then we're both learning. They stayed like that, heads bowed together. Two emissaries of once divided species, now united not by peace treaties or military alliances, but by the raw and fragile power of truth. Epilogue 3. Standard weeks later, across the border world of Aureus 3, a crowd gathered around a public archive node. Children and elders alike watched as the recordings played. Old footage, hidden records, a Trisari envoy's voice echoing through the square. Some laughed, some wept, others stood in stunned silence. But no one looked away. In the stars above, unknown ships stirred. Messages blinked across systems. Debates ignited. Protests formed. Treaties were questioned. But most importantly, talks began. Real ones. Without fear, without lies. The galaxy would never be the same, and somewhere, drifting between stars aboard a salvaged vessel with no name, two fugitives watched it unfold. Together, the end.